Welcome to Zestful Aging, where I interview inspiring, fascinating women who are navigating aging with class and sass. I'm your host, Nicole Christina. So today we have a really special guest, Mary Ellen Clausen. Thank you so much for joining us, Mary Ellen.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about this project.
Thank you. Mary Ellen is well known for being the founding director of Ophelia's Place, which opened in 2002. Is that right, Mary Ellen? Do I
Yeah,
have the
that's
date right
correct.
there? And it is a nonprofit, and it really, is a center of education and advocacy for eating disorders. And she has really made a name for herself and for Ophelia's Place in her outreach. And then in 2009, you created Cafe 407, which is a community gathering place and a lovely cafe, I might say,
Well, thank you very much.
which supports her mission. Um, would you like to talk a little bit about how this all came about, Mary Ellen, the Ophelia's Place, for those who don't know?
Sure. So I started Ophelia's Place as a response to our own family's struggle with eating disorders. So I have two daughters, both that were struggling. And I think one of the things that I realized, Nicole, was that eating disorders is a family disease.
Mm-hmm.
And I think early on, I believed that I could kind of draw this line in the sand that was just an us and a them, and I could fix them somehow, right? Like it was, I'd go to I'm going to date myself here when I say this, but, I thought I could go to the yellow pages and, there would be a heading for eating disorders. I would get them the treatment that they
I
needed, and then
see.
we would move on and we would all be healed, right?
Like a flu or something.
Yes, or a bone that needed to be set, right? And so this was a whole new world for us, and it was a challenge, and it was devastating, and I knew very little about eating disorders, and so as we navigated this whole experience and this whole disease, we really learned that this was a family disease, and that we could all be part of the healing solution. And that was something that we had struggled with early on, is that this goes back 20 years. And 20 years ago, we weren't talking a lot about eating disorders, and there wasn't a lot of research that was being done about that and family dynamics. And again, none of this came from a place of blame. It was really just about understanding the disease and figuring out how we could be a part of, the solution, and how we could learn to connect at a deeper level and what was behind all of that. So really,
Mm-hmm.
that's really was the impetus for Ophelia's Place. That was the birth of it. It was when my younger daughter came back from being in a treatment program for 4.5 months out in Arizona. And she'd come back and said that, she was in between semesters of her senior year of high school. And she had said that, I wish that there was a place here locally that I could go to. And both of my daughters, I mean, they went to programs from Pennsylvania to Wisconsin to Arizona. And it made it very
Mm-hmm.
difficult for families, for us as a family, to be involved in the healing and recovery. And so we were really struggling and stumbling our way through that. And so when my daughter had said, I wish there was a place here locally, we started to explore that. And what would that
Mm-hmm.
look like? And one of the things that she communicated that she needed was a place that was safe and supportive, that could provide perhaps support groups, and that she knew she wasn't alone. And that was the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
it. We really did. I can look back now, Nicole, and say what we did at the time was a needs assessment. I
Okay,
couldn't have
yeah.
identified that at the time. It was just this desperation of, hey, we're going to hold an open house, and we're going to say if you or somebody, basically we took an ad out in the local penny saver, because the World Wide Web, right? Google didn't exist. Search engines didn't
No,
exist. We were just
that's
exploring,
right.
and then we were exploring the World Wide Web with dial-up service, right?
Oh
And so
my
we took an
goodness.
ad out in a local Penny Saver, a free publication that basically said, if you or somebody you know is struggling with an eating disorder, we want to hear from you. And that was the beginning of it. We had 75 people come that evening.
Oh
And we
my
knew
goodness. And
then that it was a real need in
yeah.
the community.
And but you know what I really take from this as you're describing it is you're a woman who's curious and obviously super resourceful, but also you have a certain attitude as it comes out like, I'm going to figure this out. It doesn't
Yes.
exist, but that doesn't, like you have this sense of agency, and like, well, it's not here, so I'm going to make it.
Yes, I am a long time problem solver. That's what I am.
Uh huh.
What is this? I'm always about what is the solution? How can we resolve this? How can we fix this?
And also at some level, and here I go, sorry, as you know, I'm a therapist, but like at some level, you must believe that you're a powerful force and that you don't know the answer, but you're going to figure it out.
I think it's so interesting to hear you say that because I don't know that I would describe myself as being powerful. And yeah, I think we all have that inner power, right? And like, what is it? What is it that drives us and motivates us? And for me, I think certainly at the time it was that, that mama bear, right? Like, this is my
Mm-hmm.
role and this is my job is to take care and protect my children. And when I couldn't do that, it really turned my life upside down. And I drew from that power, right? That source. And I think that that has been um, a guiding path for me, right? Like I get to do that, right? I get to be a part of um, the not only the healing journey, but just the whole part of that power that you refer to.
Mm-hmm. And as you said, and many people who are listening are mothers, we know what that's like when you're desperate and it's the most important thing in the world.
Hmm.
And and it sounds like you just took everything you had and you said, I have to figure this out. It was a life and death question.
And Nicole, I also think I think anger was a motivator for me, right? Like, I think when we get angry, like for me, it's often an emotion that is hard for me to express because I don't know what to do with anger. And I think when I was angry over the lack of knowledge and the lack of resources that were available in our community at the time, I think I used that as a way to motivate and to channel all of this anger, right? Like, what is it that I can do? And so for me,
Mm-hmm.
it became part of that place that I wanted to a gap that I wanted to fill. It was
Mm-hmm.
almost this compelling pull that I couldn't not do it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. All the forces kind of came together
Yes. And
to
I by
make this
no
a
means did
reality.
this alone. It was truly a community of so many
Mm-hmm.
like-minded people and organizations and passionate, friends that came together and said, "Hey, we are in this with you and we are going to we're going to make this work."
Mm-hmm. And you know that I treat people with eating disorders, and one
Hmm.
thing that occurs to me is I'm just thinking about what it must have been like because it's not like you were raising sort of awareness or doing advocacy for cancer, which everyone knows about, everyone's afraid of. There's a lot of myths and a lot of bad information
Hmm.
about what an eating disorder is, who gets one, and why someone develops.
Yes.
And they're not all flattering.
No. And it's a terrifying disease. And unless you've experienced it, I think, yeah, I think we have probably at times sugarcoated it, right? And not given it the credit that it deserves. And unless you are in it, and I remember my daughter saying to me one time, she's like, nobody can possibly understand. unless you've experienced it, you can't understand it. And she said,
Mm-hmm.
and so I even got that from my own family and friends. And it's almost like you didn't want them to get it, because if they got it, it meant that they were also experiencing it, right?
I
And so it's a
see.
very isolating disease. You
Yes.
feel certainly alone and separated. And I think, you know, again, to speak to what you were saying, there are a lot of myths about eating disorders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, if we could shift gears here a little bit, this obviously has been a major part of your adult life. And I want to talk a little bit now about how you have developed as a woman, that this is, of course, a big part of it, but what has being, a woman, we'll say over a certain age, been like for you? Can you talk a little bit about that? Your development, your exploration?
Yes, I read a book quite a few years ago by Richard Rohr, who is, I believe, a Franciscan priest. And he talks about, the book is called Falling Upward, and it talks about the two seasons of one's life. And the first season is spent building your container, right? Like who you are in your family, in your community, in your job, your career. And the second half is about like the contents of that container, who you really are inside of all of that. And so for me, I started to really look at that, I would say, within the last 5 to 6 years. We're
Mm-hmm.
now 16 years into this nonprofit. And, Nicole, it probably, I think it was in 2011, maybe, I was going to retire. I was going to step down from my role as the executive director of Ophelia's Place. And
Mm-hmm.
I had a party, and there was even, a picture of my face on the cake, right? I was
Yes.
retiring. Now, what I didn't prepare for and what I didn't see through is that I really had no plans for retirement. I had no succession planning in place. I think I was just so tired at the time and so ready to relinquish the responsibility of
Mm-hmm.
running a nonprofit that I just went ahead and said, announce this, this is what I'm doing. I'm stepping down. We'll have a little party and we'll call it a day. And so, yeah, I can now look back and go, yeah, I probably could have planned a little bit better for that. And but what happened is that I was able to take that time, which was about a year, and just kind of start to breathe again and kind
Mm-hmm.
of work through what is next for me. Because what I found during that time when I announced my retirement, quote unquote, was that people were
Mm-hmm.
saying to me, well, of course you're going to keep doing this. What will you do? Because this is who you are. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember every time somebody said that to me, I remember thinking, this isn't who I am. This is something that I've been passionate about, that I have really fought hard for, but this isn't who I am. This is something that I've
There's
done, and
more
it,
to you than that. This is
yes,
maybe
and
like
it,
this is a facet and you've done it full-heartedly, but it's not just this one thing.
correct. And so I thought, you know what, it's not that I needed more in my life, it's that I needed to be about more, right? So it wasn't just, Mary Ellen is the founder of Ophelia, of a nonprofit that she started in this little community in upstate New York. It was, I'm more than that. There's more pieces to me. And so it became this opportunity for me to explore that and to really kind of rest and be still. And sometimes that's uncomfortable, right? Like when we,
Mm-hmm.
and because I am I'm one of these individuals, and I'm sure I'm not alone with that in that area, is that I think it's a good day based on what I've accomplished, right? So
Mm-hmm.
my worth
Mm-hmm.
is based on crossing off the list of, to-dos, right?
Right,
And
right.
sometimes I'll even put things on that list that I've already done just so I can cross it off,
Sure.
right?
That's the little secret that
Yes.
not everybody shares. Yes.
Yes. And so be like, wow, this was a great day because I accomplished, all of these tasks on my list. And so instead of it just being, this is a great day because it's just the sun came up today, right? And I got to witness
Mm-hmm.
that, or I got to watch the sunset. And so that time for me was really important. And I started just reflecting more and spending more time in meditation and prayer and walks and not having
Mm-hmm.
to accomplish, but still feel and understand that I was valuable and worthy just because.
Just because. What was the tipping point for you? Because you have been such a champion for this cause. And I'm just curious, was there anything in particular that said, okay, I gotta rest. I have to put this aside. Do you remember anything
Yeah,
like
I
that?
think it was a lot of health issues started to surface for me. And
Mm.
I am, again, one of these people that just kind of push through. And I also, to be completely transparent here, in the course of the last 15 to 16 years of, running a nonprofit that had, with the exception of the cafe, did not have a solid, sustainable revenue stream. So you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly, shaking people down for loose change and fundraising. So during this period, I had several breakdowns, and those breakdowns came in the form of just total exhaustion, right? Where I would,
Mm-hmm.
my husband said it was like he felt like I was Mercury, right? And every time he would try to pick up a piece, it would break into, five more pieces. And he
Oh,
was afraid he was losing some of that underneath the couches.
it's
And
it reminds me of this just profound level of burnout.
yes, yes. And, I think that that's something that we probably need to talk more about as people, as forces in nature, right, that are so passionate about their cause and their work, but we don't really talk about what self care looks like through all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, self care it can look very selfish, right? And it's not, it's really important and really critical, but I didn't really understand that. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was, there's always more work to be done. There's always more things to do. And so I just kept ignoring signs. I kept ignoring the exhaustion and the fatigue until finally it got my attention and pretty much immobilized me. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was really a wake up call for me of really figuring out, what,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't working.
I
And when we
can't.
talk,
Right, my body's just screaming at me now.
yes, my body was screaming. And when we say, it's just stress, we devalue the impact that stress plays in our bodies. So that was the
Absolutely. And
tipping
as
point.
caretakers, we just keep giving and giving and giving, and it becomes actually dangerous after a while.
It does. It does. And that's what happened to me. There was some significant signs that scared me. I'm like, okay, this isn't
Mm-hmm.
okay anymore. And so that was the tipping point, and that was the cause for pause.
Right. But I've heard that from other people. There's, you're so determined, you're so hardworking, and you get reinforced for that. People will
We
say,
do.
oh, you're so, selfless, you're so giving, you're so this and that. It does cost. It
Yes.
has to come from somewhere.
And I think, Nicole, on so many levels, the organization filled me, right? Like it met a need for me. It somehow, um, it somehow felt like I often feel selfish over what I've done. I feel selfish that I started this organization because it met such a huge need for me. I needed something good to come out of something that was so awful. And
Yeah.
so there were times that I would feel selfish over all of that, and that got very confusing for me as well. Be like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, So I think to take that time out, right? To take that breath and to begin to start to be still and to write and to journal about this whole experience, because my emotions, my it was complicated, and it felt
Mm-hmm.
complicated. And so
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to start to dig back. I wanted to start to peel back some of those layers around all of it, and started doing, more work with my therapist, right? And really trying to understand all of these different parts of me that continued to, these people, all these parts of me that were trying to protect me and build all these layers around me. And so as I started to dig in and to do that work, it was really very healing for me. It was very
Mm-hmm.
emotional for me, and now I can operate from that place today, where I have a deeper and a greater understanding, and I find myself oftentimes getting caught up in that cycle again of doing, accomplishing, and then I have to take a
Mm-hmm.
step back and go, okay, let's take a breath. Let's figure out what's really going on here. And it's uncomfortable to sit in uncomfortable feelings, right?
Mm-hmm. It's radical, I think, to take care of yourself and to rest. Almost it's almost radical to say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I have to take a nap, or I have to go take a walk, or I haven't had time to make myself a hot meal.
Right.
People kind of look at you a little bit crooked. They say,
Yes.
oh, well, okay.
Yes.
And so I'm so glad, even though it had to come to extreme measure, I'm so glad you were able to say, wait a minute, time to recalibrate. This is not sustainable.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Hey there! More of the interview in just one moment. Now it's time for a quick shameless plug for my Zestful Aging web course and my newsletter, Breathe, Taste, Savor. Hop on over to NicoleChristina.com/zestful aging to find out more. Now back to the show. So that sounds like it was a real watershed kind of event. So you started doing more self reflection. What are the kinds of things that you started exploring other than being the director of Ophelia's Place? You said you didn't want to be just that. What are the other pieces?
I think it's figuring out who I am as a wife, right? As a mom. I mean, there are all those pieces, certainly. And that I am, that there's greater depth in all of us, right? And so it's digging deeper and it's having those deeper conversations. My husband and I started riding a motorcycle probably, I think it's probably been close to 10 years now that
Oh my
I've been
goodness.
riding, right?
How did you start
Isn't that
that?
crazy? So
It's so fun.
my husband rode a motorcycle when he was in college many years ago. And then when we started doing this work with Ophelia's Plays, we felt, we were here, right? Like we didn't feel like we could do much outside of starting a nonprofit. So we got talking one day about, I said, how would you feel if if you bought another motorcycle and that we could escape, during the week for a couple of hours on a motorcycle ride, or go for a trip, on a Saturday or a Sunday, and it really not get in the way of the work that we are doing, and it just will be just this escape for us. And so he was very quick to reply to that and to respond to that. And so he
It's
ordered a
the
motor.
opposite. Yeah, it's the opposite of what you were doing, right? I
It's
mean, it was
yes.
just pure fun.
Yes. Yes. And so he was quick to jump on that. And so we ordered a motorcycle. And I remember saying to him, what if I hate riding on the back with you? And what if I hate riding? And he said, well, we'll sell the motorcycle, well, let's try this. So we tried it. And, Nicole, I might have a few control issues. And so, after the first year of riding, I I mean, on the back with him, I loved it. And I said to him one day, I leaned around and I just said, "Hey, how would you feel about teaching me to ride a motorcycle?" And so he had this he has a big Harley, and he said he took me to a soccer field and said, "Here we go. We're going to give it a try." So I
Oh
learned
my
how to ride
gosh.
his motorcycle on a soccer field, which, by the way, is not easy to ride on grass. And so that's how I started to learn. And then I ended up taking my motorcycle safety course, and I bought my first motorcycle in, gosh, I think it was probably close to 10 years ago, 9 years
Oh
ago.
my
And then I
gosh.
have worked my way up to, a bigger bike. And yeah, we ride all over the place. I love it. And there's
It's
so much freedom in
it's
that.
that I was just gonna say it's the opposite of that, life or death, over responsible, earnest, sincere, working for the cause. I mean, it couldn't be more polar opposite.
I know.
Than the work it's like, hey, this is really not a lot to do with transportation, right? This is just fun.
And you know what, Nicole, I learned is when you're on a motorcycle and you've got, not there's no metal around you to protect you, right? You have to be completely and totally present. You have to
Mm-hmm.
be in the moment. And I operate where I'm always 10 steps ahead of myself, right? That's my pretty much my MO on a regular basis. And so to get on that
Mm-hmm.
motorcycle is to be completely and totally present with my
Mm-hmm.
surroundings, with what's in front of me, with what's around me, my body, every part of it. And I'm so grateful for that.
And you took a risk. I mean,
Yes.
some people might think it's a little unusual.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I have to ask you about this boudoir photo shoot because, first of all, it is gorgeous.
Oh,
But
thank
tell
you.
tell me tell me about this because this is another example of you just, it's like this way in which you're just doing things that are a little bit off the middle of the road and taking risks, and it's just so delightful to see this. Tell me how you decided to have boudoir photo shoot.
So it was my 55th birthday and my 25th wedding anniversary. And so I thought, you know what better way to celebrate this than to do a boudoir photo shoot and put together this book to give to my husband. So one thing you should know about me as well, and again, being completely transparent here, I never struggled with an eating disorder, but I definitely struggled with body image issues. And so that was my thing, right? Was body image. Grew up on my family, a large Italian family. We all grew up with this, perpetually dieting, right? The yo-yo
Mm-hmm.
dieting, all of that. And so when my kids got sick and I realized, wow, I had my own struggle around body image and all of that, I had to really do a lot of work around that. And so that I've absolutely been a work in progress there. And so I thought, what better way to face my issues and my struggles with body image than to do a photo shoot. And so a boudoir photo shoot.
Mm.
So that's what I did. And I remember thinking I thought my mom was beautiful, right? And my mom struggled with her own body image. And I remember at one point with a photographer who's just darling, this photographer, and my niece also was there to help like style this, right? Not weird at all. And so I remember saying they were looking through the lens of the camera and they're like, oh, this is so beautiful. This is so great. And I'm like, well, do I get to see a picture or like a preview? And so she showed me a picture and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I do look like my mom. And that was like this turning point for me because I thought my mom was so beautiful. And so I thought, you know what,
Mhm.
I can do this. And then I had a lot of fun with the rest of the photo shoot.
What a triumph. I mean, for so many ways, in terms of, what you had struggled with, which is basically, absolutely epidemic. The whole body, dissatisfaction and that. And then also coming through, the eating disorders of your daughters and all of this. And then at 55 to say, no, I'm really gonna show show myself
Yeah.
and
And it,
take that risk.
absolutely. And I remember, so I created this little book, and um, for our 25th anniversary, I gave it to my husband that night when we were sitting at dinner. And so he opened it, and the first thing he said to me was, "Oh my gosh, this must have been so hard for you." Like, he acknowledged and
Mm-hmm.
recognized the challenge for
Mm-hmm.
me and was so moved and touched that I would do that for him and for us. And really, I said to him, I really started out doing this for you, but in the end, it was a huge gift for me.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is just beautiful. So beautiful. Do you have advice for any women who are sort of coming into the stage of life, where we don't feel young anymore, but we also know we have time and we want to use it wisely, and we want to remind ourselves how precious it is? Some women, as you know, and I have clients like this who have been nurturers, caretakers, they've worked really hard, they've raised their family, and now their kids are launching, um, and their job may or may not be winding down, and they really struggle with what now? I don't
Hmm.
even know where to start. I have people saying, I've never asked myself the question of, what do I want my life to look like? What would you say to them?
I think it is. I'm a terrible advice giver. But I think what I share is experiences, right? And so I think when I'm a big fan of Brene Brown's work, and when
Mm-hmm.
she talks about vulnerability and authenticity and getting curious, I think that is it. That's it for me. Like, I am curious, and I want to know more, and I want to go deeper. And I think we absolutely do get to do that. And this is, oh, it's that season that Richard Rohr talks about, that second season of our life. And that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily have to be in chronological. Like, some people experience the second season of their life at the age of 25, and some might be 75. So I don't think age is so much um, the issue. I think it's that when you reach that point where you understand that your role in your family and your community and in your work is in a different season, or it's changed, or it's time for retirement, or to have children, or to your children are going off to college, or it's the empty nest, like whatever that point is for you. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's that time that we really do get to be curious about what's next for us. What do we want to explore and get curious about in our own life? And my husband and I have this conversation a lot. He ended up taking up music again after being away from it for 30 years. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that about him, that he has since bought, a couple of drum sets and has in two different bands. And I think,
Yeah.
gosh, we really do get to do that. We get to add more in our life, or take out more in our life, right?
Right, right. It's like this. I think of it as like it's almost like a blank slate or a blank canvas.
Yes. And
Here's your paints. What do you want to put on this thing?
yeah, I do agree with that. And I also feel like, I don't know about you, Nicole, but there are times when I welcome not having responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Oh yeah,
I even said to my
sure.
husband last night, I don't want to have any responsibilities this week. Can I take a day off from responsibilities? I'm over
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
right?
Can I quote that, Mary Ellen?
Yes.
Responsibility dash. I'm over
I'm
it.
over it.
Yep.
Yes.
Sometimes being competent is really a burden,
It's
you know?
exhausting.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Oh
I
my
want
good.
to play with my grandkids and go for a motorcycle ride, and eat ice cream for dinner.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's just classic. That's
Yes.
beautiful. So, the other part I think about is people trying things and maybe also not expecting that they're going to be great at them,
Right.
that like maybe they'll try music, maybe they'll try we have Oasis in Syracuse, which is a really lovely resource for people. The programs are wonderful. They're professors oftentimes teaching these courses that are very interesting: politics, travel, different kinds of stuff. And the idea that there's you can go and try something and you may like it and you may not. And
Right.
then or you
Hmm.
may be good at it or you may not.
Yes.
So to just keep like leaving the judgment out, which is probably another Brene Brown um, piece of advice.
Yes, absolutely. No judgment. Approach things
Mm-hmm.
without that. And don't have,
Mm-hmm.
these expectations of what it needs to be or what it needs to look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like this idea of, as you said, being curious and just really allowing yourself time to explore and maybe even appreciating, that we have this time, that
Hmm.
we have, that we don't have to be full-time parents or super caretakers of
Correct.
our kids
Yes.
anyway. Yeah. Any last thoughts that you'd like to add as we wrap up? Anything else you'd like your the audience to know about you, or
I
anything else
think
you'd like to add?
I think just I love what you said earlier about being powerful, right? And I think maybe that's gonna be my word for the year is powerful. And what does power
Mm-hmm.
look like, you know, for me? And there's some freedom in that as well. And so I think um, with that also that word, I also think about being brave, right? And what does
Mm-hmm.
bravery look like? And for me, bravery looks like stepping out of my comfort zone and stepping out of the norm and what the expectations that I have of myself. And so, maybe that's something that we can all spend some time thinking about is our own power and how we can be braver as we face this, new time in our life, this new opportunity for us to explore, you know, this next stage of our lives. And I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing around all of this. I love
Oh,
the
thanks.
idea of, just creating this community of women that, we get to share our experiences together.
Yeah, thank you. You were talking about power, and it just came to mind. Some people might be a little, put off by that, thinking, oh, I don't want to be, like someone using brute force, and
Hmm.
that's not so. But power and being powerful and being gentle can go side by side,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And I think maybe I think of power as this energy, right?
Aha.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
what do we want to do with that energy? I mean, there are times that, I want to be able to, go to bed at 8 o'clock at night, and I get to do that, right? And there are times that
Mm-hmm.
I'm up watching the sunrise in the morning, and that
Mm-hmm.
is, you know, that's this gift, right? That things just look so different right now, and I love this. I don't have a struggle with the number, like the age, my age, yet. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying that won't come, but I
Right.
don't. I feel like there's a lot of freedom at being 57 years old.
Hmm. I've heard this again and again that if I only knew how great this would be, I wouldn't be fearing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marielle, thank you so much for talking to me today. You have been an inspiration for so many women. And I really appreciate your vulnerability and you talking so honestly about some of the struggles you've had. And I really do appreciate you spending this time with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nicole. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Okay, that's Mary Ellen Clausen. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. Please comment, rate me on iTunes, like, and share. I love to hear from my listeners. Send me an email at NicoleChristina.com and tell me what you'd like to hear more about. Want more zest? Head over to NicoleChristina.com/zestful aging, where you can find out about my online course, Zestful Aging: Simple and Sustainable Habits for Health and Longevity. See you next time.